RUSI of New South Wales, we have endeavoured to deliver our lunchtime lectures online, while our presentation venue, the Anzac Memorial Sydney, has been closed and other COVID-19 restrictions have applied. This has not been easy. Our presenters are busy people, and finding the time to talk to a computer has not always been possible. Our thanks to Major General Catherine Campbell, AOCSC, for providing us with this quality presentation. There is more about General Campbell at the end of the presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where I am speaking from today, the Ngunnawal people, and pay my respect to their elders past, present and emerging. I also pay tribute to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander men and women proudly serving across the 2nd Division. Thank you for this opportunity to speak during what is a busy, challenging and unprecedented time for the 2nd Division, and indeed for our whole nation. The Australian Government has asked a lot of the ADF this year, in particular of the Reserve. Over the last 13 months, the men and women of the 2nd Division have proved to be an important capability for the ADF and the nation. They have brought their diverse blend of military and civilian experience, skills and insights to help the government respond to two of the most significant domestic crises we have faced. Through the bushfires of last summer and the COVID pandemic, reservists serving across the country have strengthened our connection to community and country. In my address to you today, I will discuss the vital role the 2nd Division plays in the Integrated Defence Force. This is reflected in how our people have responded to the challenges of 2020 and how we continue to meet the demands of our strategic environment through our continued transformation. This transformation demands that the Division can navigate significant changes in the way it operates while we support enduring domestic and international operations, continuing daily business and providing world-class training that ensures we are to deliver capability across the spectrum of operations from humanitarian assistance and disaster relief to warfighting and security tasks. Firstly, let us look at how the 2nd Division's role and focus has evolved in the recent past. Transformation is not new to us, from providing a base for mobilisation to augmenting the regular army and through the Ready Reserve scheme. We have adjusted our structure and focus as strategic circumstances have demanded. Under Plan Beersheba, the 2nd Division's main effort shifted to providing additional combat capability to the Army's combat brigades. The Division's annual focus for the past several years has been raising, training and sustaining a reinforcing battle group to support the Ready Brigade. At a time when operations in Iraq and Afghanistan stretched Army's capability, the 2nd Division's reinforcing role made sound strategic sense. It also grounded the Division in foundation warfighting, the core role of any military force, and one we retain. In recent years, the Australian Government has called on the Army and wider ADF to prepare for an increasing range of operational contingencies. Given growing strategic competition and uncertainty, our high readiness full-time forces must be focused on responding to short-notice contingency overseas. But the Government still expects the ADF to support the Australian community during natural disasters and other civilian emergencies. With this expectation forecast to grow even more, on the 1st of September, the Chief of Army formally assigned responsibility for leading domestic operations to the 2nd Division. Our geographic spread and deep community links means this is a mission we are uniquely well suited to. In what has been a year like no other, our lead role in responding to the summer bushfires and the COVID pandemic has shown that this is a mission we can perform easily. On January 4th, on advice from the Federal Government, the Governor-General issued a call-out of Defence Reservists under subsection 28(1) of the Defence Act 1903 for continuous full-time service to provide civil aid, humanitarian assistance, medical or civil emergency or disaster relief from the date of that order until revoked. This was the first time in the Commonwealth's history that this power had been invoked. The first time reserve brigades had been called out to support a large-scale disaster. It would also be the largest mobilisation of the ADF for domestic disaster relief that Australia had seen. 2nd Division personnel formed an integral part of the ADF commitment, with nearly 2,700 reserve personnel responding to the call-out and rendering continuous full-time service, with another 940 members serving on training days. The reserves provided the core of the defence response, but we were joined by 2,800 full-time Army and around 1,300 Navy and Air Force personnel, and 50 representatives from the Commonwealth Public Service. The 2nd Division had provided support to disaster relief in the past, but this was on an altogether different scale. The response to the bushfires would also drive transformation in the command and control of domestic operations. Headquarters 2 Div at Randwick was established as the national mounting headquarters, with the 4th, 5th and 9th Brigades stood up as joint task forces under CJOPS and DJFHQ to support state and territory governments. Our role as a mounting headquarters ensured that part-time forces integrated quickly with our ARA counterparts, other services and eventually with foreign militaries. As the operation progressed, we would be joined by contingents from New Zealand, Singapore, Papua New Guinea, Fiji and Indonesia. The 9th Brigade-led Joint Task Force 1111 in South Australia is an exemplar of total force integration on operations. It comprised the 9th Brigade headquarters, units from across the state and from Tasmania, as well as the 6th Brigade 16th Regiment Royal Australian Artillery. Other crucial support came from the 1st and 17th Brigade and troops from New Zealand. At its peak, the task force in South Australia had almost 1,400 soldiers deployed. Only a properly trained military force could have responded as quickly as we did and integrate disparate units into a combined force operating in particularly adverse and dangerous conditions. In what our Chief of Army describes as an army for the nation and an army in the community, our reservists provided a crucial link to local authorities and communities in times of need. Private Brodie Scott, a specialist driver with 4 SISB, is but one example. She was flown in with other combat service support members from her unit to assist the remaining residents of her hometown of Mallacoota, cut off for weeks by a ring of fire. After a brief reunion with her parents, whose home had fortunately been spared, she spent the following weeks undertaking fuel deliveries in Mallacoota in support of the CFA and the SES. Private Scott said at the time that Mallacoota, even for such a small town, had provided me with every opportunity. Private Scott joined an army for the nation, but she also joined an army in the community. Just as the demands of bushfire assist eased, governments across Australia were taking steps to respond to the growing COVID-19 pandemic. On the 27th of March, Joint Task Force 629, based on the 2nd Division, was formed to command the ADF's contribution to the whole of government response to the COVID-19 pandemic in the states and territories. The 2nd Division's capacity to respond to domestic crises and to command a joint force would consolidate during this operation. Headquarters JTF 629 was, and still is, based on an augmented Headquarters 2 Div, a significant facilities upgrade based on the establishment of a 24-hour joint operations room with modern communication systems and a common operating picture, has been central to our ability to effectively command and coordinate a complex and often highly sensitive operation. The JTF is supported by joint task groups in each state and territory, which coordinate with civilian agencies and delivers the ADF support on the ground. These JTGs are based on our brigade headquarters, with additional task groups stood up in both Tasmania and the ACT. Coming off the back of the bushfires, many of our commanders and headquarters staff were already experienced at working in support of civilian agencies, highlighting yet again the value of our communal links. As identified in the 2020 Defence Strategic Update, the ADF is required to enhance its support to civilian authorities, which is reliant on strengthening partnerships with the authorities in the states and territories. Our support to the COVID response has seen these partnerships mature and deepen. On the ground, over the last 7 months, 2nd Division members have supported civilian police management of state and territory borders, from sub-zero temperatures in southern New South Wales to remote outback areas of South Australia and the Northern Territory. They assisted with planning and logistics, have welcomed Australians home from around the globe, and supported quarantine management and contact tracing. The very size of response to COVID-19 has required a significant commitment from the whole of the ADF. Reserve personnel accounted for over 50% of the JTF from March until the surge of personnel into Victoria and New South Wales at the end of June. Over the next 10 weeks, we saw CIRCAT 5 personnel more than double within the JTF to over 600, or around 26% of all deployed ADF personnel by mid-September. As of late October, over 3,000 2nd Division members have deployed on COVID-19 assist. On top of the deployment of over 3,000 reservists during the bushfires, this is a remarkable achievement, with a majority serving on both operations. Private Frank Mara from the Northern Territory community of Niue is one of them. Having only enlisted in Norfolk in September 2019, Private Mara deployed to Kangaroo Island to remove burnt trees and clear footpaths in the national park. He's since deployed on COVID-19 assist twice, including 3 weeks at a police checkpoint about half an hour from his home community and another 4 weeks on a checkpoint near the West Australian border. The COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in the most significant economic downturn since the Great Depression, and in some cases, reserve service has provided employment for members who would have otherwise been unemployed or underemployed as a result of redundancies, layoffs and stand-downs. The 2nd Division's ongoing commitment to COVID-19 assist will continue for as long as the government requires it. We're also ready to respond to large-scale domestic and regional events ahead of the high-risk weather season. Concurrent to the commitment to COVID-19 assist, the 2nd Division has also not lost momentum in support of other critical operations. We've continued to deploy contingents on Op Resolute to protect Australia's borders and maritime interests. 51st Far North Queensland Regiment has commanded Op Overarch with a continuous deployment since February, monitoring the transit of people through the Torres Strait. Approximately 5% of 2nd Division members have deployed on overseas operations so far this year. While disaster relief operations have captured our focus this year, we continue to prepare for warfighting. The Division will continue to raise, train and sustain a reinforcing battle group to pair with the full-time Ready Brigade. In 2021, Battle Group Cannon, based on 11 and 13 Brigade, will partner with 3 Brigade during Exercise Talisman Sabre, the ADF's major combined exercise with the US. In recent months, brigade-based assurance exercises have been conducted to practice the skills and procedures needed to support domestic security operations, another complex and demanding mission that we are responsible for. As ever, the ability for the 2nd Division to serve on operations has been underpinned by support for our soldiers from their employers, educational institutions and local communities. As but one example, only with continued support from his employer, the Australian Submarine Corporation, could Sapper Ethan Cotton of the 10th 27th Battalion Royal South Australian Regiment have deployed on Operation COVID-19 Assist following his involvement in Bushfire Assist. Sapper Cotton joined ASC under the postgraduate program as an engineer and has never looked back. He's pleased to say that the company encourages the reservists to stay actively engaged and professionally trained. Whether it be small business in regional communities, large private employers or government departments, without that support we could not generate the capability that we do. COVID-19 has challenged us to think of different ways to deliver training outcomes. 8 Brigade's innovative approaches have ensured our initial employment training has continued. In addition to courses at Kapooka, we ran the part-time recruit course with the Training Block 1 of the Officer Training course for the first time in Queensland in order to negate the need for interstate travel and quarantining. Running course modules back-to-back and in home locations where possible has also reduced travel requirements and effectively fast-tracked training. Working within government restrictions, we've still managed to achieve about 90% of our directed training requirement. We've continued to be an exemplar of training transformation, and the wider Army continues to look closely at our flexible models of training delivery. We've also been able to continue the Army Indigenous Development Program in the Northern Territory. This is a pathway for Indigenous Australians who wish to join the Army, but who do not meet the general entry standards. Run by the Regional Force Surveillance Group, this training forms a major part of Defence's commitment to the Australian Government's whole-of-government strategy of closing the gap. 2DIV will transition to a military force trained to conduct foundation warfighting and postured to support the Australian community during natural disasters and other emergencies. As the ADF's domestic force of choice, 2DIV will progressively reorganise to focus on key outputs like liaison with emergency services and generating the capabilities needed for the high-risk weather season and domestic security incidents. Each have their own intricacies, risks and challenges. We will also retain the responsibility for the reinforcing battle group and support to named operations. This is a positive change for the division, which will see exciting developments in a number of areas. In Western Australia, we've been growing our Cav Scout capability as well as our engineers. The recent appointment of a Special Forces officer to command 13 Brigade will also provide new perspectives and opportunities to increase cooperation with full-time units in WA. We've also committed to the ongoing development of Army's total workforce system. 2020 has reinforced the value of a diverse workforce when solving complex problems. The integration of full-time and part-time members at all levels, including in operational command position, has enabled Army to support the community in overcoming unprecedented challenges. Our integrated workforce leverages part-time skill sets, frees up capacity in critical areas and enables knowledge transfer across the organisation. The end result is a more capable Army. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you today just some of what the Australian Army Reserve and the 2nd Division in particular has been doing in this most challenging of years. The future of the 2nd Division is increasingly operationally focused and integrated as part of the Joint Force. Integrated not only with the regular Army as we continue to generate warfighting capabilities for overseas operations, but through the establishment of a JTF for commanding both full and part-time joint forces on domestic operations. We will also be working ever more closely with emergency services in the states and territories. As a result of our successes this year, we've proven this capability and won the trust of government and the community. We can expect an increasingly demanding but rewarding future. Thank you.
Major General Catherine Jane Campbell, AOCSC, is a senior Australian public servant and an Army Reserve officer. In civil life, she is the Secretary of the Department of Social Services. On the 4th of June 2018, the then Brigadier Campbell was announced as the next commander of the 2nd Division on promotion to Major General, the first woman to be appointed to the role. During her early career, Catherine held various corporate strategic planning, information technology and resource management positions within the Department of Administrative Services and the Department of Defence. Catherine holds a master's degree of Business Administration, a Master of Information Science, a Bachelor of Applied Science, Applied Mathematics, and in 1994 she completed the Royal Australian Air Force Command and Staff College. In 2008, the Advanced Management Program at the Harvard Business School. Catherine is a Fellow of Certified Practicing Accountants and a graduate member of the Australian Institute of Company Directors. Major General Campbell was awarded the Conspicuous Service Cross in June 2010 for outstanding achievement as the commanding officer of the Sydney University Regiment and appointed an officer of the Order of Australia in the 2019 Australia Day Honours in recognition of her distinguished service to public administration through senior roles with government departments and the Australian Army Reserve. In January 2020, she was called out to command the Defence Force response to the Bushfire and COVID Crises.